So let's get right to it. Let me, first of all, I think you probably all know who we're talking about here. Mayor J.B. Lawrence, Charlie Sellers, Jim Steele, Dan Phillips, Albert Yount. And so, J.B., please begin with your 1-minute opening statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leigh, and thank you all for coming here tonight. It says that you care about Blowing Rock and your government in what we do to shape our town. My challenge has always been, and will continue to be, to keep our small town small. Whatever it takes to keep our small town small. That will be our focus. And I'm probably been in this barn longer than any other rat up here. But that rat's got a lot of experience too. He has served with a lot of councils, a lot of great people, Keith Tester being one of the greatest. And we've accomplished a lot under my watch, but I had a lot of help, and I want to thank those people for helping me. And going forward, we will accomplish a whole lot more. Thank you.
Charlie?
You know, I hate it. These microphones are always taller than I am. But my hat's off to JB and all the other mayors. They've done a great job. You know, I grew up here 50 years ago, and we're going to the theater, Craig's Grocery, Story Soda Shop, going home to my grandmother's for lunch. Now, it is time for change. We need to preserve the past and build for the future. JB's right, I'll have to admit. You've done a good job. But now it's time to look at the issues. The 321 corridor, the Middle Fork Greenway. We have to look at our infrastructure, the roads. That has to be done, not in 10 years, 2 years, 5 years. That's what we depend on. That's why we pay taxes. And our revenues. We do not want to increase taxes again. How do we increase revenues? I think all the city council and JB and all the other mayors have done a great job. Now it's time to look forward. Let's go forward. Thank you.
Jim Steele?
I decided to seek office again because I think in the next 4 years, we're going to have to make some pretty big decisions, 3 of which that I can think of right off the bat is we got to continue on this bond referendum, and I'm interested in seeing that we spend that money wisely. Number 2 is I'd like to see the development of 321 that's in our town done appropriately. And in about 2 years, we're going to have to make some of those decisions. And number 3, the entrance to our town is probably going to change to Sunset Drive. And that's going to mean some changes there. And I'll bet you that those decisions are going to be tough. And so that's why I'm running, because they're important to me. And it's like my tagline is, I do it for the love of Blowing Rock. And that's it, because it ain't the money.
Dan Phillips.
I want to thank the citizens of Blowing Rock to allow me to serve the town the last 3.5 years. It's been an honor. I want to also thank this civic organization. It takes courage to stand up for what you believe in. Serving on the council has been an education. I come from a background of team sports and owning your own business when you made decisions, and a lot of times you made them yourself. I have to admit, it came a bit of a surprise to run dead into a system that did not recognize either. I had to make some adjustments, and I made them. Sometimes some towns only have the role of providing infrastructure and services to the citizens. When the council decided to take the TDA on, it decided to become a part of its economy. With that being said, good or bad, we have decided, where I've seen over the last 10 years, the economy side of things has started to become 100% toward tourism, good or bad. Our comprehensive plan said we need to diversify our economy. So one of my recommendations is going to be that we look to hire an economic developer to work with the TDA and the Chamber to help diversify our economy. So that's going to be one of my recommendations. Thank you.
Albert Yount.
Well, I've just moved my residence to a new house, and it's on the corner of Progress and Preservation. And I think those two go together in this town. We don't want to let it get away from us, but we have to let it grow some, because if you don't grow, you die. A lot of towns have experienced a slow death that way. We have the greatest EMT guys that I know anywhere, and I've lived other places. They were great to me when my wife needed them, and if you call them, they're anywhere in this town within minutes. You can't get that anywhere else. I don't care where it is, Hickory, Charlotte, New York City. Taxes, yes, people don't like taxes, but they voted about 73% for their taxes to go up 2 cents every year so we could take care of some infrastructure needs, which we are doing. And lastly, I would just have to say, and sometimes we're like that, but we now have a woman on our council, and it has been a real nice thing for me. A woman's perspective is way different from us guys.
Okay, that concludes the opening statements. Now to the first question. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like, you can read along with me while I ask the question to J.B. Lawrence. Historically, Blowing Rock was a resort community, a location of choice for many affluent people from all over the country to build and buy expensive second homes, and the village developed as a high-end shopping environment for that community, while also including support services that define a full-service community. For instance, drugstore, hardware store, grocery store, post office, school, all downtown. Many of the expensive homes are becoming year-round homes. The Main Street shopping environment is becoming much more tourist-oriented. The full-service community is spreading out, and many believe that we are losing our village image. How do you feel about this, and what role do you think town government should assume for managing the transition?
Well, I certainly don't feel like we're losing our small town atmosphere or our village atmosphere. The core of Blowing Rock is pretty much unchanged. The downtown district that we all love, that little village strip, it hasn't changed a great deal in the last few years. And if I look around town, the last commercial building that I see built was the Blowing Rock Art History Museum. And the last building built from the ground up, I don't remember when that was. The United Community Bank was finished in 2008, but that was a rebuild or a redevelopment. So I can't recall the last time a new commercial building was built in town. Now, a lot of what's going on, and the reason that we have become a tourist town, and I truly agree with this comments, we became a tourist town a long time ago. We still have a lot of affluent second homeowners, but we became a tourist town. We became a weekend town. With the new roads, it's what, an hour and a half, 2 hours to Columbia, Charlotte. Columbia's a little further, Raleigh. And we get tons of people coming to Blowing Rock for the weekend. However, there is a difference in that now we are a year-round weekend town. Where we used to be a resort town and it was 3 or 4 months of the year and that was it. Now we are a weekend town year-round. And I think that's a plus. And it's changing demographics. It's nothing that we did to change. It's the greater demographics and the greater economy that change, not Blowing Rock. I think we've stayed pretty much the same. Now, our job, as I see it, is to create the best business environment for our merchants and the safest environment for our visitors. When was the last mugging we had on Main Street? Does anyone remember? No, and I'm proud to say I don't know of one either. That's what I'm proud of in Blowing Rock. You can come to Blowing Rock and you can be safe and you can enjoy yourself. And when you go back home, please tell all your friends about us. Thank you.
Are there some comments on that question or rebuttal to what JB had to say?
I would like to say that our town was built on tourism. That's what built our town. Long before my grandfather and my uncles and my mother. And JB, you know, our town will always be a tourist town. We're not going to have industry. We don't want it. So what we have to focus on is the tourism. The town has to work with TDA, the Chamber of Commerce, and everybody work together. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Jim, do you have a comment on that?
I just amen what you said. That our town, at least what I've been able to see, is a park. When people come here, you don't have to be a giant to figure, a mental giant to figure out that the core of this town is that park, that people love it. And we've got to maintain that. And we've already done, the planning board and the council over the years has maintained the look of the center core of this town by setting restrictions on heights and setbacks and also design so that that doesn't change. So the core that everybody knows about has not really changed and probably won't change. So I agree with you, JB, that we're in pretty good shape there.
Dan?
Well, I think there's, of course, two sides to every story, and I think that as I look at the TDA budget worksheet, and they're spending, I think, $150,000 a year in advertising and marketing, and have been doing something like that for the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. There needs to be a balance. The comprehensive plan came out and said we need to diversify our economy. And if you owned a retail store, you'd know that it's still a seasonal economy. It's not a year-round economy. And that diversification that they're talking about needs to be more of maybe internet business kind of people who can work from their home. Businesses like that we're bringing. If you look at our population, year-round population, it's still stagnant or going down, and it's aging. So that's a part of, I think, of what they're talking about, and I think we need to be a little more aware and open-minded about that. And 100% tourism is also what brings in chain stores and can hurt the quality of the soul of the village, and I'll speak about that later.
Albert?
Well, yes, TDA spends $150-some-thousand, but TDA also gives the town of Blowing Rock about $250,000 every year. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. These streets you see out here and these brick sidewalks and everything, TDA paid for that. They paid for this parking deck right over here. So let's just get TDA in perspective.
The second question is for Charlie Sellers. Charlie, it's a three-part question. Number one, what in your opinion are the three biggest problems or issues Blowing Rock will have to address over the next 4 years? Number two, what in your opinion are the three biggest opportunities available to Blowing Rock that should be worked or developed over the next 4 years? Number three, being specific with respect to the tools available to you, codes, comprehensive plan, that you would have if you were on the council, what role do you see the elected official taking in addressing the problems and developing the opportunities?
Well, I have one question. Wasn't JB's 2 sections, or was it 3?
I can talk all night.
All right. Bottom line, we have many issues here. We have the 321 corridor, which many people have said it'd be finished. It's going to get finished. Bull. I addressed that during city council meetings. I addressed it with Pat McCrory, and the city council came forward, the civic committee came forward, and regulations were relaxed. That's good. I think they're slightly ahead of schedule due to the weather and due to their hours being relaxed. We have other issues with this 321 corridor. All right, the curve at 321 and Main Street on the south side. There's not going to be a traffic light there, okay? There's going to be a walkway, a sidewalk on one side and on the other side. Furthermore, you can have a 4-lane with people coming through very fast. I have petitioned the state to do a traffic study there. As well as Green Park, people are coming down Green Park to go to Green Hill because that's where their navigation system sends them. Okay? They send them that way to the Blowing Rock too, which I have a little bit to do with, not a whole lot. But we need a traffic light there at Green Hill and Rock Road. I've addressed that. But really, this is a 4-lane going in. This is not a 2-lane. We've had the curves stopping people. Furthermore, our infrastructure, our water sewer. It's a 5-year, 10-year plan. Let's do it in 2 years. Our roads are a mess in the communities. Grandfather Avenue, Chestnut. I know Chestnut's on the docket, but the bonds have been taken. Let's spend the money. Let's get it done. Let's look after our community. 911 dispatch needs to come back. We don't have it here. We need 911 dispatch. We need police in the police department up here on Saturdays and Sundays till 5 o'clock. Furthermore, we need I'm not 30. I am 56 or 57 there.
That's 30
George.
seconds.
I know. We need an ambulance over here at the fire department. We have one for Caldwell County, but we don't have one for Watauga County. Let's get an ambulance over here at our fire department that can transport and not have to wait for 20 minutes to get somebody from Boone. We need to increase revenues for the town. How do we do that? We increase occupancy.
I think your time is up, okay?
And we need to support the Middle Fork Greenway. Thank you so much.
Okay. Let's start down here toward me for comments or rebuttal of any kind. JB, do you want to have any comment about that?
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you 321 is going to be finished. I don't care how pretty your council is. It's going to be finished. And in 5 years, will we know whether it was finished in September or November? I don't think so. The Middle Fork Greenway, that is a great idea. How much money we want to put into it, that's up for the citizens to decide. I think it would be a great thing for Boone, Blowing Rock, but it's a long way in the future to be completed. We have some issues. We have to go slowly with our spending our bond money so that the proper planning can be done and that the work can be completed in a timely and proper manner and not rush into anything and waste this money that you entrusted us with.
Okay. Jim Steele, do you want to comment on any of that?
Well, there are just a couple of things, Charlie, that I think that...
If you could put your microphone over close to you.
There were just a couple of things that I think that, is that loud enough for you? That I think we'd want to look into that you mentioned. The 911 thing is a state mandated deal that we've already bought into. It cost us a lot of money to get out of that. Number 2 is the contract that the county made on the ambulance service. I think we're still working on that, aren't we? Wasn't the council working on that? getting the ambulance service back over here. So there are some of those things. But one of the things that I thought maybe you might like to comment on, it says, what can elected officials, either the mayor or the council, do in addressing the developing opportunities? How do you think about it? Who do you think ought to be, or how could that be done?
Our council and our mayor should be, we have a lot of vacant property. We have the hospital now for sale. I've been talking to people in Greensboro about buying it to put in a hotel. We may not want that, but that property is going to have to be developed, and that's going to be income for the community. And that's going to be revenue.
Okay.
Dan?
I didn't know we could ask each other questions. This is going to get
we can't, but that happened. And it's the moderator's fault.
This is the
moderator's fault.
This is going to get to be fun. As far as the 911 thing, Jim's right about that. The state mandated that the 911 had to go to the county, but they did not mandate that the dispatch had to stay over there. There's been multiple incidences that I've been contacted about that the dispatch wasn't very effective and didn't work very well. That needs to be revisited. I voted against it going, and so I do think at some point in time we probably ought to revisit that and look at it. There was a lot of issues with it and still are as far as that concerned. So that's the only comment I'm going to make about that.
Okay, Albert?
Well, let's just get it out here about 9/11 and before and after. Before we sent it to Boone, if you call 911, guess what telephone rang? The telephone at Boone at the sheriff's office. It didn't ring here. That's a popular misconception. Let's just get that straight. The state kept jacking up what we had to do every year to comply with their rules, and by God, we just couldn't afford it anymore. That's just so simple. As far as the ambulance, sure, we need an ambulance here. Everybody in here, call up your county commissioner. Call them up 3 or 4 times. They're the people holding that up, not the town government. Thanks.
Okay.
May I say something in reference to that?
Okay, real quick.
Okay, real quick. I know of 2 instances where phone calls were made and the response was 20 minutes behind. And it was not because of our police or fire department, because we have the best police and fire department in the state, as far as I'm concerned. So okay. Why was it delayed?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next question is for Jim Steele. Recent surveys of Blowing Rock citizens stress the importance of quality over quantity, the Hyatt Palma survey, and preserving the village quality of downtown Blowing Rock survey for the 2014 Comprehensive Plan. But the 2014 Comprehensive Plan promotes commercial growth and the relaxation of town codes to achieve this growth. Some folks feel there is a disconnect between the surveys and the action plan presented in the Comprehensive Plan. How do you feel about this? Specifically, what issues do you think the town council will need to address to ensure the successful implementation of the action items in the 2014 Comprehensive Plan? Utilizing the code, flexibility allowed to stimulate and manage commercial growth while protecting our village quality.
Well, I think we heard tonight that whether you're talking about a business or a town, that change is going to happen. You either grow or you die. Now, as I've always said, we need to change with grace. That wholesale changes probably aren't going to happen in our town. We probably don't have the room anymore in our town for big box stores, and we have a we have a regulation against big box stores. Now, the rules and regs that we have in our store, in our town, have been changed somewhat already as it relates to restaurants and things of that nature, about parking and the number of seats that they can have outside. And that was brought about because of the demand from people that visited here. So what you've got is you've got a plan, a comprehensive plan that says that we're going to have to make some changes, that things don't stay the same. On the other hand, you've got a bunch of rules and regs. Now, what is the council's responsibility to manage that? And I submit the following. One is that we have to identify what the scope of that change is going to be. And then we have to figure out what is the number of hearings that we're going to have. Now, these hearings are public hearings. And ladies and gentlemen, this council cannot do anything clandestine. It's against the law. So these are all should be public hearings. Number two is when these things are presented to us, I am one who absolutely, I don't want to say demands, but pretty close to it, demands alternatives. Don't tell me it has to be done this way without showing me other options. Number four, what is in the best interest of all the stakeholders? And you know who I think the stakeholders are? They're the people that live here, the people both long-term and short-term, the people that work here, these are the merchants, and number four are the people that visit us. And we got to take those into considerations. And then the fifth thing that we got to do is we got to take a look at the unintended consequences of all of the decisions we make. So those are the issues, and that's how I would propose that we go about solving them.
Thank you. Let's start down here. JB, do you have any comment or rebuttal to that?
No, I think everything that we do, we want to do and approve and make sure that it fits into what we already have in Blowing Rock. We have some good code and ordinances that a lot of people have worked a lot of time over the years of putting these in place, and they're constantly being fine-tuned. And all of them, the focus of all of them, is to keep Blowing Rock the small, fine little town that it is. We have a big box ordinance. You're not going to see big box stores in Blowing Rock. It's not going to happen. We don't have any franchise stores to speak of other than Outback and Subway and some things like that. But again, I'll go back to what I'd said earlier. The greater economy is going to dictate what comes to Blowing Rock. When the economy's booming, growth will come. It's been a lull for several years, but it will return.
Charlie, do you have a comment or a rebuttal?
I do agree that one thing, first and foremost, we work for the citizens. You're on town council, mayor, you listen to the citizens' wishes, bottom line. But then there are times when we have to vary from that and make decisions that are tough. But the economy will change how we live here and how our economy thrives. And I think that we'll just go forward and do what we can for the citizens. That's the bottom line. That's what we have to do.
Dan?
I think one of the things I learned the most about this first session being on the council is the decisions you make are pretty long lasting. It's not you do it flippantly and then all of a sudden, you know, you can go back and change it. It's just like what was mentioned about the dispatch service. When you made that decision, that went over there. If you want to bring it back, it's not going to be cheap and it's going to take over 2 years. It's like when that 7-acre project came up and discussions about that were being done, that thing was going to be there forever. It wasn't going to be there just for a couple of years. It's going to be there forever. I think our whole process sometimes, even though we might have a public hearing or two, there's probably more people here tonight than have ever been to a council meeting or multiple council meeting. It excites me to see people getting involved and caring about what goes on in town. And so the reality is that the process, even though it's been in place for a while, It constantly needs to be looked at. We constantly need your input and thoughts about it because decisions a lot of times are permanent.
Albert?
No, I don't have any further comments.
Okay. This question is for Dan Phillips. Blowing Rock is often described as a community made up of 4 distinct yet integrated parts. First, the Main Street-centered commercial environment, the merchants. Second, the tourists who visit that environment. Third, the summer residents. Fourth, the year-round residents. Managing the town involves balancing the sometimes divergent needs and requests of these 4 groups. Explain how you will approach this complex problem and include an explanation of how you will use the various tools available to you. The codes, comprehensive plans, rather sizable financial resources of the TDA, the Tourist Development Authority, the approved bond funds, partnerships with other organizations such as the Chamber and the Blowing Rock Civic Association.
Did anybody else understand that? I have struggled over this, and what I tend to do if something hits me and it's pretty complex, I try to draw it down to be simple. When I read this the first time and it mentioned the Main Street commercial environment being the merchants, when it said that, I said to myself, they pay 40% of the taxes. When it goes back and talks about the tourists, I said, which have become the majority of our visitors. Then when it came down to talk about the summer residents, I said, which are declining if real estate sales are any indicator. And the year-round residents, I said, which are aging and declining in numbers. Now, people say, Dan, sometimes you're a pessimist. And I said, no, I'm a realist. And the way you tackle problems is you get to be real with them, and then you try to simplify them. Then what I went to say is, the interesting thing is, I've been a member of every one of those groups. Okay? I came here as a daycationer. All right, Kathy's here. I've been an ice cream licker. Okay, I've been a seat warmer in the park. So I feel I can bring a perspective from every single one of these groups. The thing I keep looking for and have been looking for out of this whole process, when we went through the comprehensive plan thing, the participants were less than 2% of our population, not 2%. So how representative, I kept saying. So I stepped back and I said, what is the common factor for everybody? Every one of those groups. It's the love of the village. That's the soul of the town. If you kill the soul, you're going to kill the town. Bottom line. So if you're going to use that as your focal point and all of that other stuff comes together, it all of a sudden, I think, simplifies this issue somewhat. Then what you do in my mind is I still worry about, and everybody's saying, okay, yeah, we're a tourist economy. If we're a pure tourist economy, then everything we do has to support that. I worry that if we don't diversify our economic base, if we don't start recruiting new and young people to come into this town, to use that asset of that elementary school down there, which is the best in the state, by the way, you can't continue, thank you, you can't continue to grow a town on a declining population, okay? If you see other towns that have lost their soul, it's because all of a sudden you don't have mom and pop retail stores anymore. They all become chains or franchise stores. So my situation is that first you get your focal point. Your focal point is the love of the village, and it's the quality of the village. It's not quantity. It's not the quantity of the growth, it's the quality of the growth that you look at. So those are the way I approach this thing, and that's the way I look at it, and I feel very strongly is that, and by the way, the quality of village includes Valley Boulevard. It's not just Main Street. It includes Valley Boulevard, okay? So thank you.
JB, do you have a comment or anything you want to say about that?
The one thing that really struck me is the question itself. One, it's the Main Street commercial environment, the merchants. Two, the tourists who visit that environment. Three, the summer residents. And four, the year-round residents. Well, let me just be honest with you, folks. The year-round residents need to be number one in my book, and they always will.
Very good, JB.
Always. Because a lot of those year-round residents are already our merchants. and they're out there in that other economic environment as well. So just when you talk to me, year-round residents are going to be number one. I love you summer residents. You play a huge part in a town. But when you winter and summer with me, I feel a lot closer to you than I do the other times. Thank you.
You know, I hate agreeing with somebody I'm running against, but that is life. And we're all in this, that is Blowing Rock, or wherever you are, and we're all in this for the community, bottom line. You know, like I said, I grew up here. I saw cold winters. When the police came, when a car came down the road, Main Street, you called the police. We do have to rely on our full-time residents. I agree totally. That's what supports us in the winter. That's what supports me at the Blowing Rock. They keep coming out there. I'm not sure why. But we do have to focus on our tourism, and we have to focus on our part-time residents because they pay taxes. And they have, even though they don't vote, they do have an interest. So I think it's just a big complex picture. We have to focus on everybody, which you don't have to do in Greensboro, you don't have to do in Charlotte. We've got a tough job. You all have a tough job. Thank you.
Jim, did you want to comment on that?
I think Dan was right on. Every one of those people are groups or stakeholders. But when it also says in fair governance, I want to go back to those 4 stakeholders. On every single issue, I really believe that you've got to take in consideration that each one of those stakeholders on an issue has different feelings about that issue. And the council member has got to listen to those issues and then make up their mind is what is in best interest of this town. And I don't, and each one is going to be different. And to say that there is a favorite, I don't know. It's got to be, what are the facts? And then what's in the best interest of the town? That's it. That's fair to me.
Okay, Dan? You answered the question, Albert. Albert, do you have a comment?
Well, yeah, Dan's correct. He's right on.
Dan's correct.
No.
Oh.
I have more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How'd you get my microphone?
Got me on timing.
A big concern of mine is Sunset Drive coming in town. The town's going to have to remain relative. That's going to be a true bypass. Make no mistake about it. It is. They're going to run 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. We got to have some reason for them to come in here. I don't want to leave anybody with the legacy of Sunset's tired. It's just tired. There's better ways to have speed bumps than what we have. There's a better way to catch water than what we have. And I'm concerned, look at us up here, everybody. We've been shaving for a long time. We don't have young people that even come to our meetings much. And that is a huge problem. So let's start looking at that.
I'm about ready to ask the last question, but I want to exercise moderator's prerogative. So this question that Dan answered was 4-part. It talked about the constituencies, the main street centered on commercial environment, the tourists who visit the environment, summer residents, and the year-round residents. I guess my question is, rather than seeing those constituencies as separate and apart, what would be the strategies that any of you, and any of you can answer if you wish, what would be the strategies that any of you would try to use to mold all of those constituencies together to get a way of moving Blowing Rock forward? I don't necessarily, and at the same time preserve its village quality and make sure that it is not falling behind. Nobody has said this up here. You're all running for office, and I know you all want to be positive. But there are people in this town that think that the village has lost some luster. It may just be the 321 project that's doing it. I don't know. But my question is, how do we mold all those constituencies together and get them all on the same page? Are there any ideas to further that?
Well, I think that's what I was trying to say something in 3 minutes when it should take 5 or 6. You just blow through it sometimes trying to get it all in. When I was saying that the commonality of all that group is the love and the quality of the village and what the village produces, that to me is the commonality. Now you can take, and we could argue for weeks about what each group brings to the table. There's no question. I consider myself a local, but the locals don't consider me a local. Okay, I've been coming, I live here year round, but I consider myself a local. But I'm also a merchant. I'm a council member. I can take all of those pieces and I see things from all those perspectives. So I was looking at this complex issue and George is giving me a 15-second thing here. I was looking at all these things as what was the commonality, and it's the village. It's the soul of the village. And what could we get everybody to agree on about the village? And then if you've got that, then how do you move forward from that? Now, that's not going to be easy. It's just like I said with the comprehensive plan. We had less than 200 people get involved in that. And what's our year-round population? 1,200. What's the seasonal population? 8,000. So, to me, that's our role as far as the leadership in this town. That's our role. And that's where, I've enjoyed being a part of it for the first 3 years, 3.5. I'd like to be a part of it again. Because to me, that's a major goal, a very important goal.
Anybody else want to have anything to say about that?
I think that one major point that was made by Albert was that we all shave. We've all been shaving for a long time. How do we get younger people into town? How do we get younger residents? That is something we need to focus on. How do we do that? We got Chestnut Ridge that's going to be completed. I mean, how do we get younger residents here?
That's not a daycare facility, by the way.
You and I might end up there, okay? But yeah, we need to work on that. How do we get younger people in the town, whether they're working from home on the internet, or they're working at Chestnut Ridge, or they're working in Boone? One issue has been housing they can afford. How many people 35 years old can afford a $2.5 million house? So, just food for thought. I don't know the answers. And maybe the town as a whole will find a conclusion to this. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, Albert, the next question is for you. With 4 large tracts of property available for development, redevelopment, the 7-acre North Main Street property, the old hospital property, the underdeveloped part of the new hospital property, and the 321 bypass properties, the several areas of the village itself, empty store on Park Avenue, ripe for redevelopment, we are likely to be faced with unprecedented pressure for rapid commercial development in Blowing Rock over the next few years. Explain your position on this critical issue. Do you support accelerated commercial growth for Blowing Rock? If so, how much and what kind? How would you manage it? What role does the town government assume? Would you use outside experts, city planners, traffic experts, UNC School of Government personnel? How would you prepare town staff and volunteer boards to deal with this expected growth?
Well, when I read this, I thought of the word dichotomy. I mean, we're saying get prepared for rapid growth, then we're saying we're not growing. Or how are we going to grow? I don't understand the question, actually. But let's just get down to brass tacks. Mountain leaf. We might as well talk about it. Everybody else does. My brother-in-law lives in a small town in Vermont, and it's a tourist town.
Interrupt you for a second, Albert. The Mountain Leaf Project, for anybody that doesn't know, is the 7-acre piece on Main Street that was up for development over the last couple of years.
Right, thanks. Well, my brother-in-law lives in Vermont. He lives in a small tourist town, and it's just north of Brattleboro. And it had a Stanley machine tool operation there, a big one. They moved to China, left everything vacant. So, okay, some big money from Brattleboro decided, well, we'll redo this tool place, and we're going to get people in here. Well, they cannibalized the downtown. Tourists don't go there anymore. That's what I thought could happen right out here. Somehow, those people managed to convince some people in our town that they should have less parking places because the spa they were going to open was not going to be allowed. Nobody could go to the spa unless you stayed in their hotel. Now, if all who believe that stand on your head. So that's why I did not support Mountain Leaf. As far as the government, town government being involved, it needs to stay out of the way as much as it can. We do have a new a situation called conditional zoning, wherein the town can speak with the council. We didn't have that down there before. We've not had it before. We had it one time with the church up here in the intersection, and we had a ton of people came and let us know what they wanted us to do about rezoning that property, and I think it worked well, and I think it will in the future.
Okay. JB, do you want to have a comment or?
Please, Leigh. Based on what I said earlier, if we build one new building, that's going to be accelerated growth. Any growth will be accelerated at this point in time after what it's been like for the last 8 years. But again, the people on this council have always done a good job of making sure that things were done legally and above board. And if we have to hire an outside consultant, if we feel like the project is over our head, we have done that in the past. We can do that again. We're here to serve you, and we want to do it right. We want to do it above board, and we want to make it something, when it fits in with our town, we're all proud of. Thank you.
Charlie?
I'll have to plead that I was not involved with the Mountain Leaf project. I got a lot of feedback. The feedback was the residents didn't want it. We work for the residents. There were studies that were not done that should have been done. We've not had a traffic study done in this town since 2008. Okay? I feel like that when we do something, or our council or mayor does something in this town, they need to listen to the residents. They are the taxpayers. Thank you.
Jim Steele. Yeah, sure. You have a comment, JB? A short comment?
We do work for the residents, but when you take the oath of office, you swear to uphold the ordinances of the town of Blowing Rock. And when an applicant meets all the facts of that ordinance, you can vote against it and lose in court. I have been down that road, and I took the office to uphold the laws of Blowing Rock, not to bow to public demonstrations.
Charlie, did you want to respond?
I will not say that this was public demonstrations, but when a community that's going to be affected by that development, homeowners say they don't want it, are we not working for those people? Now, I agree. I understand that it was a conditional use permit, first off. So, in Greensboro, you have to do an environmental study, you have to do an economic study, and you have to do a traffic study. Why do we not have to do that here?
We're not Greensboro.
Well, I know that, but I mean, there are studies that should be done, and so I'm not speaking poorly of anybody, but I feel like that we work for the citizens as a whole. Thank you.
Jim, did you want to jump in on that?
The only thing I'd say about commercial growth is that we only have so many, I guess, vacant lots or lots that we've got in our town, or the ones that we can control anyway, on the council, that can be developed. And I think about that, and I think about, all right, you've got a fixed amount of supply, but the demand for revenue is going to increase. Maybe not in the next 4 years at an exponential rate, because all of us that were on the council before, we managed that rate, we managed those increases without increasing taxes, even though our costs went up. But sooner or later, that issue is going to have to be addressed. Is you're going to have to do something with that land and let somebody do it. And it's got to be done, yes, with everybody's input, and it's got to be done legally. But we got to face the music about that, because otherwise you're going to leave the council with no other choice but to increase property taxes unless you get some growth in this town. And whether it comes from commercial or building residential homes or apartments or something of that nature, I don't know what we're going to do. But we got to be thinking about that.
Dan?
Well, I do. I've got ideas. A lot of times you know what an idea is. I think the reality is that we managed that money so hard we killed our infrastructure, and that's why y'all approved a $12 million bond. At the end of the day, you think about that. That's exactly what happened. Now, as far as managing growth, that's why I suggested at the beginning, I truly believe that since we got into the economic business by forming and being a part of the TDA, and we're spending money, and that's creating some of these issues, we have to get out of front of the economy. We got to diversify our economic base, and by doing that, we can generate revenue, but we can generate quality revenue, and it won't be one-sided. So that's what my thought process is. I hope we'll talk about that at retreats. I hope we'll discuss that and do something that will show what the net result of that kind of thing will be.
Albert?
Well, I got this from the planning department, our planning department. For the period beginning January 1, 2015, that's this year, to this date, cost of single home permits, including construction, is likely to affect the property tax base upward $3,329,000. Now, that's not change. That's a lot of money. So I don't think we're doing as bad as some people portray us to be doing.
Okay, that ends the prepared questions. Now there are some additional questions that have come in from folks in the audience, and one that I would like everybody to address is this issue of, are any of you in favor of the town of Blowing Rock engaging in any annexation of additional land mass?
Can't. It's against the law.
It's voluntary only.
Well,
If the individuals request annexation, it can be done. Forced annexation, you cannot do now, unless it's by eminent domain or for roads, railroads, or whatever. But it might behoove the other communities to out 221 to want to be annexed, but then we have to supply them with water and sewer.
That might be a little expensive.
okay. Another question. There's a lot of discussion these days in municipalities, large and small, about public-private partnerships. How would you define the essence of these arrangements, and are you for or against aggressively pursuing options for blowing rock in this area? Let me flesh this out a little bit. The concept would be, the most logical concept would be a hotel that would need parking and a parking facility, and the town would also be able to use the parking facility, and the town would be able to get the revenue from the parking facility, and it would be a public-private partnership. The public, of course, is Blowing Rock, the town of Blowing Rock. The private is the proprietors of the hotel. What about that, JB?
I would certainly support something like that, because not only would we get revenue from the parking facility if we were charging for parking, but a new hotel's also going to bring in 6% of their revenue is going to go for occupancy taxes. And we know how much the occupancy taxes affects our budget in a positive way. We use that money. It's done a lot of things in this town. In a situation like that, I'd totally support.
Charlie?
I'm in total agreement, and I think the prime location for that, and my mother will probably run me out of town after I say this, is the hospital where she lives next door to. But that would be a prime location. I think JB and I have talked about that and others for a small Mayview Manor, a replica of the old. So yes, I think it'd be good.
Jim, what do you think about that?
Well, I'd like to hear more. I think I'd like to hear more about the specifics, but yeah, I would be in favor of at least looking at a private and public project and see how it might work. I could, particularly if it could generate revenue.
Right. Dan?
Theoretically, yeah.
Albert?
I'd have to study it.
I'd have to see it on a per case basis. I'm really not wired that way, but I'm not totally adverse to it.
Okay.
I just think that the next big developer that hits town, I think it's absolutely fair game to know how well he's capitalized, because we've gone through absolutely two of these big developers hitting town, and they were better than ice cream, and it ended up they didn't have any money, and it cost our town plenty of money to hold all these hearings that we do. And what do we get for it? Nothing.
Well,
Okay.
didn't it cost us money?
Anybody else want to speak about that? One last question here, and then we'll have your closing statements. Blowing Rock School ranks #1 in Watauga County school system and ranks #2 in the entire state. What can the town do? And I'd like you all to try and be as specific as you can. I know it's tough, but do the best you can. What can the town do to help attract families to take advantage of this excellent school system? Anybody can jump in?
Well, the thing I have said, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but if we're going to be in the economic business, then we need to go out front and be in the economic business and hire the best there is in the country, as far as I'm concerned. And we've got to utilize that school as an asset. We've got to, brand the town as having that great school. We've got to bring in young families. There's no question about that. That's going to be the future of the town. And so, to me, anything we can do to bring attention to it, anything we can do to support it, I just think it's a fabulous asset, and we need to do anything we can.
Charlie?
I attended Blowing Rock Elementary School. It was neat. It was good. And it's now better. I've contributed to the park, or to the little recreational area, the playground. We had trees. That was it. But they have gone to the next level and done a great job. The only way we're going to get younger people in town is to offer, I hate to say this, but affordable housing. How do we do that? We annex, by request, sections of property. We're already on a roll. This city council and mayor, they've already put it in place, where Appalachian Ski Mountain a little portion, and Chestnut Ridge has been annexed. If we can offer benefits to those people, like the school, then we will benefit, they will benefit. That's the only thing I can see unless we fly them in. I don't know. But we have a great school, and we have a great community, we have a great town. So,
Are there any other thoughts on this?
Just a personal story, Lee. I had a lady call me a couple of months ago, and she lived in Hickory, but she wanted me to find her a place in Blowing Rock so she could move up here and they could live here so their children could go to Blowing Rock School and the husband would commute back and forth to Hickory. So people know in this region, they know about Blowing Rock School, and it is an asset in our community.
40 children from Charlotte have moved up here for our school.
Thank you, Virginia.
very good.
Okay, I think that,
You know, one thing that I see a tremendous asset sitting right here in this room for that school. And that's you folks. To become mentors of some kids who need just a little bit of help. Now, I don't know whether we can do that or not. But years ago, we used to be able to do that. Now they have teachers' aides and all this other stuff. But what an asset we have right here in our town that we could put to work for kids like that and make it even better. And but I do think, I agree with the rest of you, that we got an asset like that and we ought to start tooting our horn about it.
are there any other comments about that? Okay, now we're going to go to closing statements, and we'll start right here. JB?
Well, I've been here a long time. I have served this town in many, many capacities. I have been on the city council for 26 years. I served on the volunteer fire department for 10 plus years. The rescue squad, when it was the primary ambulance service, for over 20 years. I've served on the hospital board, the Chamber of Commerce board, more things than I can name, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. And I look forward to continuing to be your mayor.
Charlie Sellers?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have the resume in the town that JB has. I grew up here, and I left, and I came back, and I'm proud of the town, and I'm proud of the citizens. The only thing that I can offer is a different viewpoint, a different outlook, looking after the citizens and looking after the community. I'm in the tourism business that my grandfather started in 1933. All I can do is support the community and support you guys. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll vote for me.
Jim Steele?
Well, I guess if I was sitting out there with you, I'd want to know, well, why in the world would I want to vote for Jim Steele? And I guess the best way to answer that is that what has his record been while he served here? And Gwen and I, I'm Gwen's husband, Jim. Everybody knows Gwen Steele.
I know how that is.
Gwen and I have lived here for 15 years. And for 13 years, I've served this town, mostly on the planning board or the Board of Adjustments, but also 4 years on the city council. So I guess I have the experience that's necessary. I've always prepared for every single meeting. I've never gone to a meeting when I haven't been prepared. Number two is that people can rely on me, on my integrity and my honesty and my openness. So I guess those are the reasons why you'd want to vote for me. We got some big things to do in the next 4 years, and quite frankly, I want to be part of that decision-making process. I'm not interested in necessarily being an influencer, but being part of the process that we go through to make the right decisions for all the stakeholders that are involved in our town, so that we have the kind of place that not only you, but that I want to live in.
Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve the town for 4 years. I'd love the opportunity to serve it for 4 more. It's been an interesting challenge, as I said, to learn what it was like to come from a team working background, to have to learn how to go through the process and learn how to make changes and be able to benefit things at different times. Someone said, tell me what your greatest accomplishment has been for the 4 years you've been on. And I said, first of all, I don't like taking credit. That's not my style. But I will tell you that I'm responsible for the duck crossing signs at Meadowbrook and over here, okay? That's my accomplishment. But I will say it's been an absolute honor. I love the town. It is a great place to live and work, and I am Celeste Phillips' husband, okay? So thank you so much.
Albert?
Quack, quack. Our learned moderator has called on everybody alphabetically, and when I was in the Navy, you got paid alphabetically, and I was always glad to be in a command that had a Zimmerman, but there's no Zimmermans here tonight. Churchill said in the darkest days of World War II, when it looked like England was going to go down, that he said there will always be an England. There will always be a Blowing Rock. But we've got to work hard not to ever let it get away from us, because if we do, it's gone. It is gone, and there are people out here that want to come in here and develop things that don't give a damn about our town. They make you think they do, but they don't. And you're looking at a guy that will take you on if I perceive that you're up to that.
Thank you, Albert.